Ordination is an interesting thing for Baptists. In other denominations, ordination is a top-down thing where a bishop or a person in authority gives a leader the position, the authority to do things that the rest of the people of God can't, to minister in a specific way. In the Baptist world, ordination is that spiritual process of recognizing and affirming, calling and releasing someone into their gifting. And it comes not through higher up recognition, but it comes through us, the priesthood of all believers, recognizing someone amongst us who has a calling from God and releasing them into that.
But this all started with a call.
Did I ever think you'd be a reverend? Yes and no. No, because I've never really thought I would want a child to be a pastor. I want a child that will be a pastor. It's not something that I think I ever really wanted deeply until when you are 8 years old, around 8, 9. We had a visiting pastor or evangelist or missionary or someone like that, talk at the church. And then there was a prophecy that he gave about to you and a few of the other boys in the church about you guys going out to preach for God and evangelize for God. And from there I thought, okay, so this is what God's calling is on my child's life. And so I just held on to that and gave me in a way something to then start focusing on in terms of prayer for God's calling on your life, rather than trying to say, I want you to become this, I want you to become that. It was so like God, the defining moment where God is saying, this is what I want him to be, and that's whatever I've thought I want my child to be, that overrules it really, and then that becomes what I ponders on and pray about. Before that happens, you always love church. You loved, Bible story. You love story generally. I think that's why one of the best subjects in school was always history. You like stories and you like, the Bible story. You like answering questions in Sunday school and things like that. And you're passionate about going to church. Even after that, I don't think you probably recall that part where you are prayed on, or it was, so you as a child was probably just any other day and someone came to visit the church, pray on us, okay. And you growing up, you still love church, but it then became something as time goes on of more because of your friends. We had lots of brothers and sisters, so to say, and lots of moms and dads, and it was a family church. Everybody loves you, everybody love each other, and and you love being in that environment, and that was, I think, more about it. I mean, you did make a commitment and was baptized probably when you were about 10 years old, and I mean, it was your decision. It wasn't something that was forced on you. But I think after that baptism, I don't think you fully have a deep understanding of, okay, now what? So it was just you living life. You enjoy reading the Bible, but more like a story. I didn't really feel that it was more a case of, okay, you are engrossed to, you are reading the Bible to grow spiritually. It was just, I know the Bible. And it was more like, okay, if there's any competition at church or, a game at church, you want to be able to be at the forefront to answer any question regarding the Bible. And that, I suppose, reflects in your study, because I think one of your best subjects for this year was also, religious education. So it reflected in that, but not in terms of it as a spiritual growth, but more like, a story in good knowledge. General knowledge. You were very good at that.
Through his teenage years, questions were asked about the world and the one who created it.
How do I feel when Femi drifted from God? Concerned. I was worried, and I was also doubtful, because it's almost like, okay, what was said, was I wrong? Did I hear right? What Femi was displaying, the character as a young person was not reflecting on what, I suppose, my understanding of someone that was meant to become a pastor was showing, and so yeah, I wasn't sure at that point whether what I heard was, even though 1 minute I was sure, then the next minute I'm not sure, because behavior goes up and down, and I just thought, okay, did I hear right? Yeah, so there was time of concern, but that just made the need to pray more even more important. It's a difficult time, and it's a difficult thing to hear as a Christian mother or a family, when your child turn around and say, I don't believe in God, or I don't want to go to church. It almost feels like a betrayal, that this is what I've been raising you to be. How can you say you don't love God? How can you say you don't believe in God? That's not what we aim for. So when Femi had a crisis, mental crisis at university, one of my first prayer really was that God move me aside and deal with him, because at that point it wasn't about what I've done or have not done as a mother. It was, I recognized the fact that God needed to discipline him and to correct him and to love him, to demonstrate his love. And I felt that me trying to do everything for him or be there constantly for him was being in the way of God, doing what he needs to do. And so I just prayed that, Lord, please move me aside as his mother, and you deal with him. And I felt that's what God did.
God did indeed deal with him. After years of searching and knocking, the right door opened.
Hi, I'm Josh Kane. I'm the pastor at Mill Hill East Church and a regional minister with the London Baptist Association.
I am Lucy, and I am the church secretary at Mill Hill East Church, and I have known Femi since he started here at Mill Hill East Church 3 years ago, about 3 years ago. God, time flies.
At Mill Hill East, we're all about creative mission, we're all about blessing the community, and we're all about helping people find their gifts and talents, find their place in the mission of God.
Josh and I had been talking about what we needed just like a couple of weeks before you turned up. And we'd really been thinking about what skill set we wanted and what type of person we could see in the role. And we were talking about someone who, was interested in audio visual and filming, and actually interested in kind of media stuff, and was really going to fit in with the youth and kind of really identify with them and feel comfortable with them and feel at home in our church. And we were thinking about our skill set, and then you just walked in, and you just felt like, as God does, God's provided, and you just felt like a really good fit.
Ministry is started, but wrestling and doubts are common themes. God is calling, but will he answer?
I remember when he started at Mill Hill, and was talking about being a youth pastor. I said, "Oh, so you're going to be a pastor?" I said, "No, I don't want to be a pastor." I said, "Oh, okay, sorry, my mistake. You don't want to be a pastor. I'm not forcing you to be a pastor." But deep down in me, I know what God was calling him to be. I know what was said on his life when he was 8 years old, and this was about to happen. And I said, "Lord, this is your show. I know what was said about this child. He doesn't want to be a pastor. I'm not forcing him. If you want it to happen, you have to minister to him. You have to speak to him." So so him being in that environment, he made it clear, "I don't want to be a pastor." I said, "Okay."
I think I always thought that Femi would go into ministry, not because he looked like a minister, but because I think that ministry should look like him. He might not look necessarily like the picture you see in the news of a vicar in a dog collar, or the sort of pastor you grew up with in your church. But he's really passionate about reaching this culture. He's really passionate about people. He's a great discipler. He's a great communicator, and he really loves people. I think as well, he's just got this big open heart to others and to God. And I think that's the main quality that you need in a minister.
When Femi first preached, yeah, I was so happy. I remember really clearly, because he was just completely himself. It was really authentic, and it was just Femi, and that was really, really nice, because people don't always preach like that. People don't feel comfortable. They feel like it has to be a particular way. It has to be more formal. It has to be more whatever it is, all of that, those kind of preconceptions that people bring into it. But Femi didn't do that. Femi was very authentic and very much Femi. And from the start, that made me quite excited about what there was to come.
I remember him saying at one point, "Oh, I guess if I'm going to work for God, I have to do it right. So I'm going to go and do my degree in theology." I said, "Oh, okay." My answers was now okay, because I could see God really unveiling, so much in him that I was just so thankful. And it moved from it being about him to being about me, because I was now saying, "Lord, you love me this much that you will honor me to call my son to be a minister for your kingdom." It's a privilege to have a child to call into the ministry. And so when he says, "Oh, I guess I have to do it right, if I'm going to work for God, I have to take it seriously, and I'm going back to university." This after he has said that he's never going back to university, mind you. I said, okay. And then when he was now doing his theology, like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'm thinking of becoming a pastor." Oh, okay.
As the call is answered, the journey continues.
I think there are lots of challenges when we think about a call into ministry, because we all come with our own experiences of church. And one thing that's really reassured me is that Femi's been really hesitant to go into ministry. And I'm always reassured by people who are hesitant to go into ministry, because it's a challenging place to be, to humbly serve other people, to be the one who is there in people's most challenging times and their biggest successes, to be the one who has the privilege of listening to and speaking on behalf of Father God and saying, this is where he wants to lead us as a church. It's a real privilege, but it's a real weighty challenge. And it comes with it all sorts of expectations that we bring from churches we've been in, expectations from other leaders and other ministers. And I think Femi has really wrestled with that. And one of the things I've wanted to really encourage him in is go shape ministry around your passions and callings and giftings, because we need a new church for the future. And in order to be that, both here in Mill Hill and beyond, we need Femi to be all that God has gifted and called him to be.